I thought trucking was one of the coolest things you could ever do. What made it so cool? A whole lot of things. When I was a little kid, I grew up like a lot of kids, standing on the side of the highway, watching the trucks go by, thinking, man, what would it be like to be in there? What does it look like out the windshield? What would it feel like to drive something so huge, so powerful, so loud? It was great. And I always had that in my head my whole life that, trucking would be a great adventure, but I never knew anyone who did it or didn't really know anything about it until I was 21 working in a warehouse, and I decided, I got to figure out something. I'm making $5.50 an hour at the time. This is in 1993. And, that wasn't cutting it. And I didn't have any training. I didn't have any college or anything. And I had to figure out something. And the one day we had to make some deliveries at the warehouse, and they let me drive the truck. It was just a little rental truck. You didn't need a CDL or anything, but it took me most of the day to make the deliveries. And by the time I got back to work, it was time to go home. And I told my buddy, I was like, oh, I got away with one today. I didn't even have to work today. I just drove around. And that immediately made me think, I wonder what trucking's all about. And JB Hunt was the only company I'd ever heard of at the time that I could think of off the top of my head. And so I went home and I called them and I asked them, what does a first-year truck driver make? And it was about 8 times what I was making at the time. And within, I don't know, a month or two, I was in school to drive truck. And, the only thing I ever thought about was the adventure. I knew I was going to make great money, what I considered great money at the time. And so that was cool. That was a thrill. But it was really the adventure, driving that big rig and seeing the country. I've always loved this country. I've always loved America. And I had never seen it. And it kind of felt weird, at 21 years old to say, hey, I love America. I have a lot of pride in this country, but I haven't really seen much of it. I don't really know a whole lot about it. I really wanted to get out there and see it and travel the roads and really experience life on the road and see this place from coast to coast. And so that's all I thought about was the adventure. And it's interesting to me because for 17 years now, I've been mentoring people on Trucking Truth. And I think back to, what was I thinking when I was getting into trucking? And what kind of questions do people ask me now? And it's always kind of strange to me because I didn't really think about the pay that much. I didn't pay or benefits. I've never been married and I don't have any kids. So, I wasn't trying to raise a family. I was just going to live in the truck and cruise around the highways. And so I thought, all I wanted was an adventure. All I wanted was have fun and get out there and see the country and just have a blast and see what it was all about. And I think about the questions that people tend to ask us on the website, and a lot of people are really hyper-focused on, exactly what am I going to make, exactly when I'm going to be home, and, the benefits and all the details of the job. And especially when you got a family and a home, a mortgage to pay and things like that, like obviously you have to know that a move into trucking is going to pay your bills. But I always notice that most people don't seem to really approach it from the side of it being an adventure. It's just another job. And the problem with that is what makes trucking so cool, one of the things that makes it so cool is it's not just a job. And if that's all you're looking for, you're just looking for a paycheck so you can pay your bills and you want your life to be pretty predictable and routine and all, trucking is not the place to be. Not for the most part. Some of the jobs, yeah. But I'm talking about over-the-road trucking, the real adventure side of trucking. And if you're looking for predictability and consistency and just a way to pay your bills, trucking's going to ask too much of you. It's going to ask too much. If you're looking for an adventure, if you love a challenge, like I love a challenge. I always want to see what I'm made of. I always want to see what I can accomplish. And trucking was incredibly challenging. I also love every day to be new. I can't stand a routine for the most part. I don't want things to be predictable or monotonous. I always love to know that anything could lie around the next corner. And that's the lifestyle I was looking for. And that's what trucking gave me. It was endless challenges, endlessly different days. It was just, you never knew what was coming. And a lot of people don't like that. And I can understand that. Most of my family were they were union workers. They worked at the steel mills and the auto plants and stuff like that. And every day of their life was almost exactly the same as the day before. They worked the same hours, doing the same job in the same place with the same people. But they always were able to pay their bills. They had a nice home. They raised their families. I understood. Like, I totally understood where they were coming from, but it just didn't work for me. I couldn't do it. I couldn't just do the same old boring routine. I wanted adventure. I would rather be broke and have a lot of adventure than to have $10 million and I got to get up and do the same thing every single day. It just doesn't work for me. So the variety, the challenges, the adventure, the traveling, all of that was super cool, but there's more to it than that even. What else was really cool about trucking is the control that you have over the way you do your job. You know, most of us are used to having jobs where you're being micromanaged and the boss is looking over your shoulder, monitoring everything you do. And I get it. You know, again, I can understand why that's necessary, especially in some jobs and everything like that. But, you know, nobody enjoys that, right? Nobody says, gosh, I just wish there was someone telling me what to do every 5 seconds all day long, you know? But too much freedom, too much control is also challenging for a lot of people because some people do come from a more regimented background. And some people, they don't really have that sense of adventure, that sense of wildness in them. They want things to be a little more predictable and sustainable. And trucking can offer that as well. I mean, there's jobs that you do the same thing every day. You go to the same places, you drive the same truck, you work the same hours. You can find a routine in trucking. You can find a job that offers that, but even that, being on the road makes it a very dynamic environment. It's not like working in a warehouse. You don't know what's gonna happen. You have heavy traffic and unpredictable weather and, you know, all kinds of variables that are outside of your control and are unknowable. And so you have to embrace that. You have to be the type of person that embraces that type of situation. And a lot of people don't. In fact, most people don't. And I'll tell you right now, trucking is not for most people. It's hard to even put a number on it. I'd say 80 or 90% of the people could do it, but wouldn't enjoy it. It really doesn't suit them. It doesn't suit their personality, their preferences, their life goals. It's really not for most people. But if you're the right type of person for trucking and you find a job that suits you well, and there's a job for just about everybody out there in trucking, if you can find a job that suits you well and your personality fits the job, you're gonna love it. It really is an endless adventure, and I loved everything about that. I liked having the control over my schedule for the most part. Not so much the routes you take. Most of the routes are pretty obvious where you need to go, but you did control your own schedule and when you drove, when you stopped, where you're gonna eat, where you were gonna sleep, all that kind of stuff. Even when you were gonna handle your own work, like, you know, doing laundry and eating and things like that you had to take care of on the road, you got to set your schedule a lot of times and you had a lot of control over everything you did. So I loved that part of it as well. And so it's really, to me, what made trucking so cool was the fact that it's not just a job. It really is a lifestyle. It really is an adventure. It's very unpredictable. It's challenging. It's an incredible adventure. You have a lot of control over what you do. And it's not like any other job in the world. And, you know, I've written countless articles, countless videos, you know, over 10,000 comments in the forum. No matter how hard I try to explain what trucking is like, it's one of those things that you'll never really know if it's for you until you've been out there and you've done it. And so the nice thing is you can take a shot at trucking with very little risk. I mean, if you pay for your schooling, there are free options, and I'll cover that in other videos. But if you were to pay for your schooling, the time and the money you put into the schooling, which isn't very much, I mean, that's really all you're risking. You can walk away at any time. So you get into trucking and you stick it out for 6 or 12 months and decide it's not for you. Hey, it was an adventure. You learned a lot. You experienced a lot. You made good money while you were there. and now you move on to something else. You know, no big deal. They're not going to put you in prison. You're not going to get struck down by lightning. You can walk away anytime you want. So, you know, I would encourage people, if you're the type of person who likes the kind of things I describe, you like an adventure, you like a challenge, you're driven, you're motivated, you're willing to put in long hours to do a job that's really unique and satisfying and exciting, definitely consider trucking. Definitely look into it, understand it, and consider it. You know, like I said, you can walk away anytime, but trucking was the coolest job I've ever had by far. It was a ton of fun. I learned so much about myself, about the country, about the people around me, and the memories are just priceless. And, you know, I really hope that if you do get into trucking, that you keep in mind what I said in this video, that it's not just a job, it's a lifestyle, and you really have to embrace it for what it is, or walk away. Because I always tell people, you're not going to change trucking, but trucking will change you. And you have to accept that, roll with it, and, you know, if you find that it's in you, you're going to love it. Like they say, you know, once the diesel gets in your blood, there's no getting it out. But keep in mind that it really is a lifestyle and an adventure and an endless challenge. It's not predictable. It's not easy. It's not routine. It's going to demand a lot of you. It's a lot harder than you think it's going to be. But that's what makes it so rewarding. I thought trucking was the coolest thing I ever got to do.